Hi everyone, we are going to make my most simple broth ever. It is based in chicken and dill and garlic. And after that, I am going to make a chicken soup with part of the broth, but I also use the rest of the broth for other things, like for sauteing vegetables, adding to different sauces and things to make it more tasty. But yeah, that's it. I just thought I would bring you guys along. Um, Basically, what I'm going to do, I'm going to slice up my celery and rinse it because it's extremely dirty. Oh my gosh, has anyone ever noticed that? How dirty celery is when it's directly from the grocery store? It's extremely dirty. So I've gone back and forth over the years between chicken broth and vegetable broth. I'm definitely happy to use both. But chicken honestly just gives, in my opinion, better flavor. And I usually will use it for broth right before air frying the chicken legs. So I end up air frying the chicken legs and they're kind of, they serve a double purpose. And usually there's enough flavor and fat in them to still taste good when they're air fried, even after taking out a lot of flavor in the broth. So that is my advice. I suggest you try the same thing if you haven't already. It is so yummy and everyone loves it. So I'm just gonna wash my celery. Perfect. And I am going to get started on my garlic. Does anyone have the same issue with garlic where they won't chop a whole head of garlic, so then you have these like leftover pieces and then you never actually end up using them? So I have these leftover pieces. I'm going to actually try to use them this time. They tend to get lost in my refrigerator. And Avi would say, like, you know, whenever he opens up the vegetable drawer, sorry, he doesn't open up the vegetable drawer because it's kind of like the Bermuda Triangle. You don't really want to go in there. I don't know if, I have a feeling that it's the same in other people's homes because we just are so, the cooks of the family, whether you're the mom or the dad, we're just so busy. We have a lot going on. All right, gonna cut up all of this garlic. I guess you could also, look, you could also put onion, you could put carrot, which I'm going to end up putting in my chicken soup that I'm making for Friday night dinner. But just for the broth, I think like basically a whole head of garlic, a whole handful of fresh dill, and a bunch of chicken legs just really does the trick. Like you really don't need much more than that. I find that perfectly sufficient. So what I like to do is I like to squish down the garlic before chopping it, just to kind of break it open. I don't know if that's just being redundant because then I do dice it into small pieces. So why do I do that? I don't know. I'm sure there are people like me who do things without really knowing why, but it just feels right. It's like I just feel in my soul that this is what you're supposed to do. And when I get evidence to the contrary, maybe I'll change my mind. But for now, that's how I do it. So, let's see. I hope everyone is having a really nice week. Here, we've had so many school holidays. Avi and I like to joke that apparently we have full-time childcare and full-time school, but apparently not, because the kids are home all the time. Or I should say that they're off all the time. We do find activities for them and put them in various things where they're not just sitting around the house, because otherwise I would go nutso. But suddenly, it's like someone is sick, someone has a sore tummy, there's a public holiday. There are just so many reasons for the kids to be home, even when they apparently have full-time school. So this whole thing about unschooling, which, oh my gosh, do I have my opinions on unschooling? Maybe I'll talk about them one day. It's a real thing. It's if you haven't heard of unschooling, it's kind of like homeschooling, but sorry, I'm going to really pay attention to this chopping of garlic, so I'm not going to be looking at the camera. but it's like homeschooling, but without a very fixed schedule or curriculum. So the idea is that you are kind of catering to your child's individual needs. You are not worrying about, fulfilling, say you're from the state of Pennsylvania, you're not worried about fulfilling the state of Pennsylvania's required learning for grade 3. You're just kind of going with what your child, it's like child-led learning, whatever they're interested in. You encourage their natural kind of inclinations and curiosities, and you try to kind of say your child is really into web development and karate. So you basically sign them up for a web development class and sign them up for karate lessons, and that's kind of how it goes. In addition to signing them up for things, you take some responsibility. You want to take them on, excursions and kind of teach them yourself, and they should kind of take part in just normal everyday things. That's part, I guess it's also part of homeschooling, is raising independent, kind of aware kids. Whereas a lot of the kind of complaint about regular school is that you take away that independence and you take away that ability to kind of make mistakes, ask questions. When you go to a doctor's office, the parent immediately goes up to the front desk and says, "I'm here for an appointment for my child." As opposed to doing that, you would send your child up to the front desk and tell them to check in themselves. They can fill in the forms, they know how to read and write. And let them learn how to start, approaching adults. It's something that's really good for their confidence. It's really good for development. It's really good for language. Sounds like a really simple thing, but it's something that I feel like most people just don't think about. I certainly didn't think about it until more recently, actually. So just like really encouraging in every facet, not just in general saying, "Oh, I like, lots of garlic." Not just in general saying, "Oh, I want my kids to be independent." It's like, no, well, encourage them, put them in uncomfortable situations, I'm a big proponent of that. So is Avi, and we, a lot of things that say Jonathan Haidt talks about. He's a professor at University of Virginia, and he's the author of The Coddling of the American Mind. He talks about it a lot. This is kind of his thing, is like we need to bring back free-range kids, that whole subject. I'm going to put in the whole heap of dill, which I rinsed off, but honestly, I'm never quite sure what to do with fresh herbs, because when you rinse them, suddenly they're all soggy, and I don't know what to do about that. But anyways, and a whole heap of chicken legs, because I want this to be very flavorful. And yeah, also my new favorite, Maldon salt. Of course, none of this is sponsored at all, but Avi and I had done a little bit of research, or I trusted the research of others, on which salt is kind of the purest and the lowest in heavy metals, and Maldon comes up on the top, and it has all these extra trace minerals that are supposedly quite good for you. So I like to use that. I don't put a ton of salt because I usually end up using salt or some version of it in the final product. So I'm going to use some filtered water. All about the filtered water lately. We used tap water for many years, even until recently, but trying something new. Okay, let me turn this on. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my electric stove. I'm going to put it on an 8, which is very high because I just want it to really come to a boil. But once it's come to a boil, I am going to turn it down and then just let it simmer for basically kind of as long as possible, like the whole day. I'm really happy to just let it do its thing. Okay, just refilling my filter, but I have time to wait for that to go down because it will take a long time to simmer. That's it, guys. That's my whole thing. So this is my broth. It's getting started, and I will be adding the celery and the carrots as we go on. But this is the real base of the broth, and then a little bit later I'll add the other veggies, and I'll be probably taking out the chicken legs, which then we can, air fry, cut up, and add some to the soup to make chicken soup, and keep some separate. And I'll probably be taking out the dill because I don't know, the kids generally don't like to eat the dill, but sometimes adults do. So if you want to keep it in there, then you definitely can. Thanks for being part of my broth tutorial. And yeah, tell me in the comments what kinds of things you want to see me cook because I cook a lot. We have a lot of different favorite dishes, and I'm happy to share them if you're interested. So just write in the comments what you're interested to see me make, and I will definitely make it for you. Have a good night.